Hey everybody, I'm Scott Wikle. You're listening to My Kind of Country right here on Fish Creek Radio. My guest tonight is a true legend in country music. With over 50 years in the business, he has made many firsts in country music. He's credited for introducing Waylon Jennings to RCA Records. He is also one of the first to record for many well-known songwriters such as Jack Clement, Harlan Howard, Billy Joe Shaver, Mickey Newberry, Tom T. Hall, Shel Silverstein, and Chris Christopherson. And in 2013, he became a member of the Country Music Hall of Fame. It's a true honor to welcome Bobby Bare to My Kind of Country. Bobby, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, Scott. Doing great.
All right.
Everything's fine. Just got a few miles on me, buddy. Nothing hurts and I feel good, and I'm still doing shows. I just got back from doing a show in Arlington, Texas, and I'm on my way to Bristol, Tennessee.
Wow.
To fill in for Loretta. Loretta fell and hurt her chest, and I'm helping her out this coming weekend.
Oh, that's great.
I'm still active.
How's Loretta doing?
She's doing good. She's home.
Good.
I
Well, that's
ain't hurt her.
Well, that's mighty nice of you to help her out. That's fantastic. Well, I got so many questions to ask you, and the first thing I'd like to know about is your association with Shel Silverstein. My daughter, her favorite book is called Where the Sidewalk Ends, and of course, one of the great books by Shel Silverstein. And so many of your great songs, Marie Laveau, and just so many of them came from Shel. How did you come to be associated with him?
Well, Shel's a genius. He did so many things brilliantly, especially his children's book. You mentioned Where the Sidewalk Ends. Whenever he was putting that book together, he gave me the first copies of it. It was on great big sheets all rolled up, and we were taking that. It was when my kids were smaller also, and we were taking a vacation trip to Florida, going to Jacksonville, and I took that with me, and my kids read that all the way down, every one of those, that whole book, and it kept them entertained, going and coming back. That's and Shel was so brilliant with kids. We'd be walking down the street and we passed the school, and Shel just stopped and watched the kids playing in the yard until you had that beard and you looked kind of weird anyway. I said, Shel, we better move on. I said, somebody gonna call the cops on us. He's standing there gawking at those kids. But that's where he got his ideas, watching kids play for the children's books. But he was a brilliant songwriter, Boy Named Sue, all those, Marie Laveau.
Absolutely. You did a whole album of his songs too, didn't you?
I did about 10 albums of his songs. I did Lullabies, Legends, and Lies that had Daddy What If in it, and it had The Winter and Marie Laveau. That was the first Shel album I did, and then I did Singing in the Kitchen with my kids, a whole album of kid songs. And I did The Winter, The Losers. I did Down and Dirty, and just a whole bunch of Shel songs. Because I loved his writing. And you didn't have to work hard on them. It was all fun.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Matter of fact, the last project I did with Shel was I got together some buddies of mine. I got Waylon Jennings and Mel Tillis, Jerry Reed, and myself. And Shel wrote us a whole album, more than that, 20 songs, about the realities of getting older and Music City. And it was called The Old Dogs.
Yeah.
It's been about, I don't know, probably 15 years ago or more. And Shel passed away. He passed away right after that. That was the last project we did. But we had a lot of fun doing it.
Oh, I can tell.
Fun doing it.
Great
Bill
album.
Reed said it's the most fun he ever had with his clothes on.
That's a great album. I love the song on there. You're Still Gonna Die. That's one of my favorites.
Oh, you still Oh, you can have yourself frozen and suspended in time. But when they do thaw you out, you're still going to die.
That's like Hank Sr. said, he'll never get out of this world alive, you know.
That's true.
Well, I want to go back to your first record in 1958 was called The All-American Boy. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I was living in California in '58, and I got drafted. And I'm from Ohio, and I had to go back to Ohio where I'd registered for the draft when I turned 18 and go in Ohio. So I went back there, and I was back there, and I had about a week or so, and a few days, and we went down to King Studios in Cincinnati and to do a demo session for a friend of mine. And we did one side on him. We had about 15 minutes left studio time, and the band sitting there. And I said, "Let me throw this thing down here while that I've been working on it, and before I forget it, let me put it down." So I just got up there and counted off 1, 2, 3, 4, and we were in to the All-American Boy record. I was making half of it up as I was going along. and it turned out to really be a big hit. I mean, it was like the biggest record in America while I was in basic training. Because I went in the Army like 2 days later.
Wow.
And it wound up with my buddy's name on it.
Oh, really?
My friend's name was on it, Bill Parsons. And it was one of those deals, you know, where they put it out today and the radio stations get it, and 4 days later, it's the biggest thing in the world. And that's what happened. I was in basic training, and it just smashed. And my buddy, Paul Bill, he called me up, and he said, "What am I going to do?" He said, "I don't even know that song." And they want me to do the Dick Clark show and American Bandstand, and oh boy. I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "I'm in the Army. Just take the money and run, buddy. Buy you a car or something." and that was it.
Wow.
He did. He bought him a car. I don't know if he paid it off or not.
I'll be darned. Well, after you got out of the Army, you were roommates with Willie Nelson for a while, right?
Well, it wasn't like we was roommates. When I got out of the Army, I lived in Hollywood, North Hollywood, and I didn't move to Nashville until 1964. But I was recording back here. But I lived in North Hollywood, and Willie had fallen in love with Shirley Colley, who was married to Biff Colley at the time, and they cut a record together. They did a duet record, and they told the world they was going on a tour. And they ran off. They disappeared. They moved in with me. Willie and Shirley moved in with me, and I guess they must have lived with me for 2 or 3 months, and I was so busy then, you know, I wasn't there a whole lot, and my landlady started giving a bunch of stuff. They had a dog. They had a cute little dog, Willie and Shirley did, and she didn't want dogs in that house, and so she was on them about that, and they were going to move and get them another place out in the valley. And I said, "Well, just move me out too." And so they did. They packed up all my stuff and moved out in the valley. And that's the last I saw of my stuff. I don't know. and eventually, then they got married. They got married. Didn't last long, but Willie and Shirley.
I'll be darned. Well, you were for a while there. You were doing more of kind of in pop music, weren't you? As I know you were doing some tours with Roy Orbison and Bobby Darin.
Well, yeah, all those first hits I had were all crossover hits. They call them. They were, as a matter of fact, they ran up the pop charts before they were in the country charts, like "Shame on Me" and "Detroit City" and "500 Miles." They were probably bigger pop hits than they were country, even though they were country records. But I was living out there. And I'd go through on a rock and roll tour with Roy Orbison, and then I'd tour with Bobby Darin and David Clark Five and the Ronettes,
Wow.
Brian Hyland, a bunch of the rock acts back then. And then I'd go through a month later with Marty Robbins and Hank Snow in places.
Well, how did you get signed to RCA Records?
I had a lot of friends in Nashville that had moved from the West Coast. I started out with Harlan Howard and Hank Cochran, and they had since moved to Nashville. And they're both hugely successful songwriters. As a matter of fact, they're in the Hall of Fame. I inducted Hank into the Hall of Fame, Cochran. But they were back here, and Chet was interested in me because he had heard that All-American Boy record, and he liked the way I talked, believe it or not, because that was a talking record. Mm-hmm. And so I went over to meet Chet one day, and I said, I'm going to cut a lot of records. And I said, I think I can do them with you. And he said, I think you can too. And Chet and I became friends immediately and stayed really close friends till he died here a few years ago. But the first record I cut, first song I cut for Chet, it's called "Shame on Me for Hurting You," and it had a recitation in it that kind of sounded like Elvis, and with a little southern accent that I've got, and big pop hit. That's what got me going in the pop field. And then came Detroit City, and when that record came out, I was out in the valley. There's a little lake out there, and I was out in the valley fishing with the guitar player Jimmy Bryant. And I heard was driving back to where I lived in Hollywood, and I heard the biggest rock station in the country, which was KFWB in Los Angeles. I heard him say, "And here's our pick hit of the day." And I heard that guitar going, dar, 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 and it was Detroit City. And I told Jimmy Bryant, I said, well, my life is fixing to change big time now. And it did. It did. Detroit City won a Grammy that year when country music had one category. Now they've got many categories.
Sure.
But when I won a Grammy for Detroit City, it had one category, and it was Record of the Year.
Wow.
And I haven't had to get a real job since.
Well, I bet you made Mel Tillis pretty happy, too.
Oh, yeah. Melvin loved that. He said, I could have done that. I could have done that song, except that they couldn't make a record big enough to hold my reputation better. Mel does.
Yeah, that's true. Well, then another smash hit right after that, 500 Miles Away from Home.
Right, that was a follow-up to Detroit City.
Monster.
And it really sold a lot of records. I bought a new car then. My manager said I was borrowing his car all the time because I didn't have any money. Why don't you get you a car? And I said, I don't have any money. He said, I can get you the money from RCA. said, what kind of car you want? I said, I want a red convertible.
Red convertible.
They got me a red convertible. Ford Fairlane red convertible.
Wow, that's cool. Well, as time went along, you kind of were doing some stuff with the folk market with Bob Dylan, and you did a tour over in England too, I believe, right?
Did a tour with whom? I missed that.
Oh,
I'm getting old here.
That's all right. I was talking about you were doing some Bob Dylan, some of his stuff, and then you did a tour over in England too, right?
Oh yeah, I toured all over the world. Starting in '64, and yeah, I love those songs. I've always been a song person, and I loved Blowing in the Wind. I was a big fan of Bob Dylan's when he very first record he had album. I fell in love with his songs immediately, and loved everything he did. Well, almost everything he did. Mm-hmm. And of course, I had a big hit on Four Strong Winds, which he and Tyson wrote. That was kind of folky. So they got and 500 miles away from home. That's sort of folky. And Detroit City is kind of folky. It's sort of like the record of John B.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they started labeling my album as folk country, which is all right by me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like folk music.
Absolutely. Well, you certainly kind of were able to span across so many different genres, and everybody liked you. It didn't matter what didn't matter what kind of music it was. If it's good music, they liked it, right?
Good songs. Got to be good songs.
Absolutely.
I don't think it was my singing that got me into the Country Music Hall of Fame. I think it had more to do with all those great songs.
Well, I gotta say, I'll tell you what, there's nobody else that sounds like Bobby Bare, so you've got a distinctive voice,
That's true.
So did Ernest Tubb,
I do have a distinctive voice. Like Tom T. Hall has a distinctive voice.
Absolutely.
And as a matter of fact, Tom T. Hall and I were flying to New Zealand, and we had to change planes in Hawaii, in Honolulu. And we were changing planes, and we got off for a while, and we were going to buy a pack of cigarettes, and we walked up to the cigarette stand. The lady at the cigarette stand, and keep in mind this is in Hawaii, she was bent down underneath the counter doing something. I don't know what she was doing, but we were standing there talking, waiting on her. And without even seeing us from down under the counter, she said, "It has to be Tom T. Hall and Bobby Bare." That's how recognizable our voices were.
That's amazing.
I know it.
How about
that? The way.
How about that? That's pretty cool. Tell me about Margie's at the Lincoln Park Inn. That is one of my favorites. How did that song come about?
One day it was Thanksgiving, I think. Tom T's publisher, Tom T and I became friends the minute I moved to Nashville in '64. And he used to go on the road with me. He used to play bass in my band. And his publisher called me it was Thanksgiving. He says, "You got to come hear this song." And I said, "Really?" I said, "It's a holiday." He said, "I know, but you got to hear it. You got to hear it." And I said, "Well, it better be good." And I drove down to the publisher here in Nashville, and I heard it, and I said, "Well, you're right. It was worth it. I got to do it." And I do it, and I still do it every night. I love it. Love that song.
That's a great song. One of the ones I get so many requests for, and I just love to hear the story on this one, is Marie Laveau.
Well, I was doing the Lullabies, Legends, and Lions album, over at RCA, and Shell came up with it. I think Dr. Hook had cut it before me, and the band just started rocking in the studio, and I started singing, and that's Shell doing the witch scream in there.
Oh, is it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's his natural singing voice. He didn't sing; he screeched. He screeched. We were working on an album down here once at the Holiday Inn. We were in his room, and I was singing, wanting to make sure I got the melodies, the phrasing right and everything, for about 2 or 3 hours. And he said, we was doing one song, and he said, no, it goes like this. And he went, and some woman pounded on the wall and said, shut the up. Until I've been singing all night and nobody said a word. You open your mouth one time and they start banging on the wall.
Oh, wow.
But he wrote a lot of great songs. She wrote Sylvia's Mother, and he wrote Queen of the Silver Dollar. A lot of people don't know this. And
that was a Dave and Sugar song, right?
yeah. And he wrote so many hits. He wrote The Winter. He wrote all those Dr. Hook hits, Cover the Rolling Stone. It just goes on and on. A Boy Named Sue.
Yep. Drop Kick Me Jesus.
No, Paul Kraft wrote that.
Oh, I thought Shell wrote that. Paul Kraft wrote that.
I know a lot of people do, but Paul Kraft wrote that.
All right. I'll see. I'm learning a lot on this interview. I'm glad I asked. That's another great song too. Tell me about your duets with Skeeter Davis.
Well, about the time I moved to Nashville in '64, it was Chet's idea. Let's do some duets with Skeeter. And I said, fine, let's do it. And I never did take all that serious until Skeeter told me they were the biggest hits in the 60s. Those albums were monstrous hits in the West Indies and Jamaica and down all throughout there. And Skeeter was trying to get me to go down there and do some shows with her. She went down there and they worshipped her. And finally, I knew she was ill and didn't have much time left and getting weak. And she wanted me to go down and do a show down there in Barbados on New Year's Eve. And I agreed to it. I took my family and everybody there, my wife. And we did a show down there on New Year's Eve, and I had, we hadn't really sang a lot of those songs since we recorded them, and I had lyrics laying all over the floor, which I didn't need because we had over 10,000. The people down there are, they're black, but they're really black. And we had 10,000 of them and the happiest people in the world. And I didn't have to worry about the lyrics because they knew them. They knew every word to every one of those songs.
Wow.
And they loved Skeeter with all their heart, Love you, Skeeter. And that made my heart feel good because Skeeter was sick, and I loved her. And I love them for loving her, too.
You bet. You guys sang well together. I get a lot of requests on my show for your duet songs too, and great.
Yeah, what's really strange about that is Skeeter is a great harmony singer.
Yes, she is.
She started out as the Davis sisters, but I forgot more than you'll ever know about him.
Oh yeah.
And she's a great harmony singer, and I'm not a very good harmony singer, but lot of that in there you hear is us singing in unison.
Hmm. Well, it worked. Whatever you guys did, it worked. It was a good blend. Well, you went on to Mercury Records after that, and one of my very favorite songs you did during that time was "Come Sundown."
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a Christopherson song. I was with RCA, and my contract was coming up, and Chet stopped producing about that time.
Hmm.
The studios went to multiple tracks. And Chet was used to going in the studio, when we were doing Detroit City and all those. We'd do 3 songs in 3 hours live. There was no overdubbing and nothing, none of that going on. What you hear on those records is what you got.
Sure.
And then and we were finished. When we got done with a 3-hour session, Chet would say to the engineer, mix that and give me a copy of it, and that was the end of that. Mm-hmm. They just put it out, and then it went to multiple tracks, 16 track, and that meant when you finished a 3-hour session, all you had was a scratch vocal. They wasn't even interested in, still aren't interested in the vocal. It's just a beginning. And Chet didn't like that. Plus, he had inherited Elvis. And Elvis would come to town, and he'd record at night, and he'd keep Chet up all night, and he didn't like that. Because Chet wasn't happy being an executive. He was actually a guitar player. That's how he thought of himself. And he was the world's greatest guitar player. And so he just quit producing. And he had 3 or 4 producers over there, and I didn't like any of them. But the one that I really liked was Jerry Kennedy, because Jerry was a great guitar player, plus a great producer. He produced all those hits on Roger Miller, all those hits on Tom T. Hall, and all those first hits on Reba. But I wanted to do some records with Jerry Kennedy, and so I went over there for 2 years and I did it was about the time that Christopherson, I found out that I got a demo from his publisher of a bunch of songs, and they were all great. I'd known Chris for 2 or 3 years, and I said, man, those are great songs. I said, who's that singing? Phrasing perfect. And he said, that's Chris. And I said, oh, Chris can't sing. And because I'd just been around him in guitar pulls, and but man, those songs blew me away. Loving Her was easier, and Help Me Make It Through the Night. Just one right after another. So when I went to Mercury, I recorded as many of those as I could. And Jerry Kennedy he said, I got a Chris song here too that Jerry Lee Lewis turned down. He was cutting Jerry Lee Lewis too. And he played me Come Sundown. I said, oh man, I love that. And he just rear back and sang. So with Jerry, I did a ton of Tom T. Hall and Christopherson and Billy Joe Shaver. I did a lot of Tom T's hits. I did them before he did.
Yeah, How I Got to Memphis. I love that one.
I did. Yeah, the first thing I cut was That's How I Got to Memphis. And the second song I cut on the same session was Come Sundown. And it was just a pleasure to work with Jerry Kennedy and also have all those great songs that nobody had really heard of.
Yeah, I know George Jones had cut Come Sundown, but I don't think he ever released it as a single. It was on an album. And I always liked the song, and then when you did it, man, that was it. That was a great song. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, mine too. I do it every night. And then I stayed there 2 years, and then I went back to RCA and I did on Ride Me Down Easy, Billy Joe wrote.
Yeah.
And then and I was producing my own records. And that had never happened before in Nashville. I was the very first artist that ever produced his own records. And I did Ride Me Down Easy, and then I quickly went in the studio with Shell and did this Lullabies, Legends, and Lies album, and which was a total departure from anything. And the only thing to say that is it had Daddy What If.
Oh, yeah.
And Bobby Jr., he was only about 6 at the time.
Yeah.
And Jerry Kennedy, who was running RCA by then, told me if he'd have known what he was doing, he'd have probably stopped the album because it wasn't what they wanted me to do. But what saved it was we had a promotion guy in Atlanta, and he was an Italian, and he had a big soft heart, and he was a friend of mine. And I ran into him at the office, RCA office here in town. I gave him a big acetate of that album, and his name was Vito Blando. And I said, Vito, take this home and listen to it, and see if you can hear. Let me know what you think, because I got to pick a single out here. Well, he took it home, and I guess he got about half a drunk night, and got to listen to Daddy What If and crying and sniffing. And the next day, he took it to WSB in Atlanta, which was the biggest, at the time, the biggest clear channel radio station in the South. And he had them play that record, and the phones and the whole world just lit up. Wow. And RCA rushed the record out, or the album. They rushed the record out, and it was a smash. We were nominated for everything, me and Bobby Jr. And it turns out the album was really, really good. You know, it had The Winner and Marie Laveau and all of that.
Oh, yeah. It's a classic. I mean, it's, I think it was one of the first country concept albums, too, that came out, and it's I think some.
Oh yeah, it was.
I think some people didn't know really where to put it, but I'll tell you what, it stood the test of time, and it's still a highly sought after album today, and it's it's gold as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it is. It's a great album, and that's exactly what I wanted to do at the time. I didn't want to put out another album with a hit song in it and a whole bunch of rejects.
Yeah.
I wanted an album that tied together and made sense, and and I had asked every great songwriter in town, Harlan, I think all of them. I said, write me. I said, I want somebody to write me an album, and it threw them a curve because they were used to singles. You know, everybody had a song or two they thought would be a hit, but nobody had an album, and nobody wanted to sit down and write an album. That's really strange. And I was at a party one night at Harlan Howard's house, and I think every songwriter in the world was there, including Shell and Chris and everybody. And I got to talking to Shell, and I told him my dilemma. He said, well, I might be able to help you out. This is on Saturday night. Well, Monday morning he called me, and he's from Chicago. He stayed at the Playboy Mansion up there in Chicago. And he called me and said, I got you an album back. And I said, great, when can I hear it? And he said, how about this afternoon? So he hopped on a plane, flew to Nashville, played it for me, and we did it. And what he did, since I've thought about it, what he did is he went home and wrote a song called Lullabies, Legends, and Lies, and then dug down into his sack and came up with songs that fit it.
Oh,
it was either a lullaby, a legend, or a lie. he just dug through his boat.
Well, you know, that's something that's missing in a lot of stuff you hear nowadays. You know, we're in a kind of an age where everything gets downloaded and they're listening to tracks, you know, and I've always liked to listen to an album in its entirety. You know, it kind of tells a story, and what you were saying about that album, you know, that's exactly it. You know, it was a whole collection. And to me, that's, you know, I've had people say, well, they don't make albums anymore. And I said, well, yeah, they don't make records anymore. They make albums. Album is a collection of songs. And
Oh, yeah.
you know, and that's what I miss about a lot of things. And that album to me was a classic because you want to sit down and listen to it in its entirety.
Yep. We did an album once. The album didn't do any good, but it's a great album. It's called Hard Time Hungry. And we talked to the real people, you know, about the hard times and everything. And Chet probably explained it, but it's called Hard Time Hungry. He said, well, the economy's doing real good right now. I said, yeah, I know it. So the album didn't do all that good. There wasn't too many hard times floating around at that time.
It might be a good time to put that album back out, Bobby.
Yeah, I just got a call from Marty Rabin from Shenandoah, and Marty's wanting to do a song I wrote way back when called "God Bless America" again. And Marty's wanting to do that. He said, I think it would be real time right now.
Absolutely. Is that the one that Conway and Loretta recorded together?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Matter of fact, we were, last year, or whenever it was, we were doing the Johnny Cash Festival down in Arkansas. Me and Loretta and Reba. And Loretta came out the end of my show, and we did it together on the show.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Well, you did a TV show back in the 80s, too, the Bobby Bear and Friends show for TNN.
Oh, yeah, that was a good show.
It sure was. I miss those days.
Sure, songwriter's show.
Yeah.
Songwriter's show. The star of that show wasn't me, it was the songs.
Absolutely.
And I had everybody in the world on that.
Yeah, you sure did.
I don't know how many people have told me that the only reason they came to town is to watch that show, and the next day they get in the car and they head for Nashville. Oh, Kathy Mateo's one of them. I don't know, somebody told me that just the other night. You know, big stars. They watch that show. So because it was loose, really loose. I know I was doing a show with Guy Clark and Rodney Crowell and Towns Van Zandt. And a guy came in with a six-pack of beer and plopped it down on the table. And I just let it sit there, and we sat there and talked and drank beer. I don't know if it was legal or not, but we did it.
That's what I liked about that show. It was, you know, it wasn't staged. It wasn't, you know, you could tell it wasn't put on. And
No.
I like that.
It was a real deal. I was asking questions I really wanted answers to. And I had, first time I've ever heard the Highwaymen, I had Glenn Campbell and Jimmy Webb on. And we were sitting around the piano talking, and Glenn said, here's a song you got here, Jimmy just wrote. And he sang the Highwaymen. And, golly, I had B.B. King on. He was a big country fan.
Oh, yeah.
Good man. I love B.B.
He cut a song with George Jones called Patches, and man, I love that song.
Yeah, well, he loved country music. I met him at the airport. I was waiting on my ride to come pick me up. I was standing there, and I saw this big black guy come walking up to me. I thought he was going to hit me up for some money or something. And he introduced himself, and he says, I'm B.B. King, Bobby. He said, I wanted to meet you. He said he was in town to do a show with Waylon somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And that's how I met him, and then I got him on the show.
Wow.
Good man. He had a real bad cold when I had him on the show, but he was a real professional.
He could sure play, no doubt about it.
Oh, man, I loved his playing.
Well, tell me about the Country Music Hall of Fame induction.
Well, I had never really thought anything about it because I never politicked for it or anything. I just didn't figure it would, it was something that I never got in the business to be in the Hall of Fame or none of that. I got in because I love to sing good songs. But I was I was headed downtown to I was producing a record on Jim Ed Brown. I was producing a song called In Style Again.
Oh,
great song.
Love that.
And
love that.
As I was leaving, my wife handed me a piece of paper and said, "This guy's been calling you. You ought to return his call from the CMA." So I got in the car and I dialed his number. And I hadn't even pulled it out yet, and it was the head guy at CMA. He says, "It's my pleasure to tell you that you're going to be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame this year." And I said, "Wow." I said, "It just so happened whenever I left this morning, I pulled out a baseball cap that I had never wore, and it was a baseball cap from the CMA. I said, I got it on right now."
I'll be darned.
Yeah, really, really strange. And so it was quite an event around my house, man. Relatives come in, my brother, my sister, Jeannie's brothers and sisters, they all came in. We had a huge blowout at my house. It was a big week, I can tell you that. And I got Tom T. Hall to do the induction. Tom T. is retired, but he came out of retirement to do that.
That's cool.
He said, first thing he said was, "Barry, it looks like we're going to pull it off." Because I went to his induction. Well, he's in the Hall of Fame also.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, "It looks like we're going to pull this thing off, buddy." I said, "Yeah." And, of course, Chris, he came and sang Come Sundown. And after the show, I went up to him, and he hugged me, and he had big tears in his eye. But Chris loves me, and I love him, too. He calls me. I talked to him last week, and his wife were on the road.
He's a good man.
Good friends, man. We don't have many of them left either. They're all either gone or going.
I know. That's why I'm so privileged to be able to talk to people like you and get these down. This is great history firsthand, and it's wonderful for me to have this down on record.
Yeah. Well, you're getting it all. Getting it all.
Well, you've got a current album with Plowboy Records called Darker Than Light.
Yeah, well, it's not really current. I think I did that a year or so ago. But the guy that owns that label, Shannon is Eddie Arnold's grandson. And he inherited all that Eddie Arnold millions. Because Eddie Arnold was super, super rich. He owned Brentwood, which is a big money town in Nashville. And Shannon was heavy into music. And I had been wanting to do an album of old folk songs for a long, long time. And so he was interested in doing that. And so I said, well, let's do it. So we did. We went to the old RCA Studio B and recorded it.
Oh, you did? Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's where we did it. Studio B.
Oh, that's
and
really
I walk
cool.
in that old studio and I'd see Chet everywhere. First thing I noticed was the piano was turned wrong. Floyd Cramer used to play the piano with his back to the wall, and the piano was turned the wrong way. It was turned around where you were looking at the wall. The little things like that.
Yeah.
I glance up at the control booth and expect to see Chet sitting in there.
Man, you recorded a lot of music in that studio.
Yeah, and I did this album with Buddy Miller and his band. Buddy's the greatest. Matter of fact, I'm going 2 weeks. I'm flying to San Francisco and do the Hardly Strictly Festival in Golden Gate Park with, Buddy Miller and his band and Emmy Lou. God, everybody's on that show.
Wow.
Big festival. It's free, too.
Wow.
Rich guy a whole lot of money. He was the CEO of Lehman Brothers back then, and he loved bluegrass, country bluegrass music, and he had tons of money. He just put it on a festival and
Nice.
made it free for everybody. And then he died. He died a few years ago, but he put a whole lot of money in trust to keep this festival going.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great.
Well, there's a website. It's
me and Buddy Miller and I think Tony Joe White. No. Next week I'm doing a show at the Franklin Theater. Me and Jamie Johnson and Tony Joe White.
Oh, okay.
Doing that together.
Outstanding.
In Franklin, Tennessee.
Oh, yeah. Jimmy was on my show a while back. Well, there's a website that has all that information. It's BobbyBearDarkerThanLight.com, and that's the name of the latest album, too, on Plowboy Records. And you can
really? I've never seen that. I better check that out.
You better check that out, yeah. And the album's available there. And you did some great standards on there. Tennessee Stud and Tom Dooley and Going Down the Road Feeling Bad and Banks of the Ohio and Shenandoah.
Yeah, and
you covered a lot of ground there.
The House of the Rising Sun.
Yeah.
In that album too, and I did a song called that Dennis Lindy wrote. The guy wrote all them hits for Elvis, and Dennis wrote a song called "Lookout Mountain."
Yeah.
And it's really good. And Bobby Jr. singing harmony with me on it. And it's a factual thing. Dennis went down to Chattanooga and studied on that for a long time. He knew exactly what he was writing about. Everything you hear in there is factual. Lookout Mountain.
I like that. Well, I'm really glad to see that you're staying busy, and the folks have an opportunity to go see you in concert. And again, go get this album at BobbyBearDarkerThanLight.com, and it brings back a lot of great memories hearing those songs. And Bobby, I just it's hard to put it into words, but I want to thank you for all the wonderful music that you've given everyone over the years, and for finding those songs and getting them out there from a lot of these songwriters that may not have had these songs heard otherwise. And I just can't thank you enough for that.
Thank you.
Thanks
so much, Scott.
Well, it's been a true pleasure talking with you, and I really want to thank you for taking time to discuss your entire career. It's been an honor talking with you.
Okay, buddy. Anytime. Just holler.
Well, I appreciate that. Bobby Bear on My Kind of Country. We're going to play a whole bunch of Bobby songs for you as we continue right here on Fish Creek Radio. Bobby Bear, thank you again.